Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here with you. I did take a look at your website this past week, and I'm so impressed with the number of programs you have and the variety. You've got a lot of hardworking people in your group. You're very fortunate. My very first time I attended the National Topical Stamp Show was in 2012 in Lancaster. I had a great time. I haven't missed an NTSS since then, before this year, but that was a great way to get to know ATA and to see beautiful Lancaster. Next. This is where I live, in Venice, Florida, on the Gulf Coast. It's about an hour south of Tampa. Beautiful place and gorgeous weather. But I won't tell you that in January because it's good all year and we don't like to brag. Mike Vagnetti, an ATA member who collects Michigan-related stamps, contacted me a few years ago and said, I would like to get involved with the state checklist project, improving, augmenting, enlarging the topical list that ATA has for the states. And so that's what's happened. Next. This is the project I'm going to tell you about. Is a great little side project, something that you can do while we're all home so much. And it's also a nice project to do with a young person. I'm going to show you what I did with the hope that it will get you interested in a project like this that you can craft in your own personal way that you would enjoy. Next. For those of you who are not familiar with ATA checklists, here's a little short overview. We maintain and add nearly every day to a database of topical stamps. The story of how this came to be is very interesting. Karen Cartier, who was married to Ray Cartier, who was the executive director of ATA at the time, took Scott Catalog number 1 and went through it and put in every topical stamp in that catalog into a database. And when she got done, she went to Scott Catalog number 2 and so on and so on. And that took her 5 years, but that was the basis for our topical checklists. And now we have 2 people who do nothing but add stamps to our topical checklists. They're really getting better all the time, and of course, technology is helping. Our lists are full, our database is fully searchable, so we're able to offer checklists for more than 1,500 different topics, including all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. Let's look at this checklist. I don't know how well you can see it here, but I'll tell you what are in the columns as we go across. To the far left is the ATA ID for our database. Then there's a code, which is, there's a key to it at the top, which is the type of item. So stamp, souvenir, sheet, whatever it is. Then the country, then the date of the stamp was issued, the denomination on the stamp, and here's the one you're really going to be looking for, and that's the Scott number. And at the last column is a description of what is shown on the stamp. That's very useful when you're shopping for your stamps. Mike, whom I mentioned earlier, recruited ATA members to augment the state list, adding stamps that not only picture something specifically about that state, like their flag, but also stamps like peaches for Georgia and apples for Washington. Once you have your checklist, it's easy to shop for stamps, even from dealers who stock only by country. But we have some decisions to make. Next. I could choose to show only stamps very specifically related to Florida, such as the one on the top right for the Florida Centennial. That would be, Paul, a topical collection. Every stamp says something about Florida on it. I think, however, that it's more fun to broaden the topic by collecting animals that live in Florida, flowers that grow there, and much more. I am creating a thematic collection. In other words, I'm telling the story of Florida with stamps. Although the stamps will be from various countries, the flower or animal shown is always found in Florida. Next. Obviously, my collection will include stamps, but there is a wide range of other philatelic items from which to choose. Here you see a poster stamp or Cinderella and a picture postcard. You might hunt for maximum cards, souvenir sheets, cancellations, and much more. Next. If you decide to collect non-philatelic items, which I love to do and include in my exhibits always, you might find advertising trade cards, travel brochures, menus, tickets, programs. I particularly like old maps and botanical prints, and I'll show you one of those a little bit later. Next. Now it's time to do some research. You might be able to do it with a combination of Google and Wikipedia because you're looking for very general things. I used a small collection of books on broad topics such as birds and flowers. As I'm going through this, I think that many of you, being from Pennsylvania, are thinking of all the categories and the things that you could put into a collection about your state. Next. Here are some categories that would logically fit in any state collection. As I said, I'm sure that you can come up with many more as you think about your own state. This gives you a full story, a wide range of categories to include. Next. Now something that we're all pretty good at, shopping. I've got my checklist and I'm ready to buy stamps. Some dealers, like Stampsmith, who is shown here at a show, organize by topic. That's a real easy way to get started. But of course, with your checklist that lists the country and the Scott number, you can go to just about any dealer who stores their stamps by country and Scott number and make your purchases. Next. A good way to organize by specific categories is to use stock pages. Probably many of you do that in your collections. Here's the start of my Florida birds. I decided at the outset to scan my stamps and use them in a PowerPoint presentation for my stamp club, and then use the actual stamps to make an album. So I had a two-step process. You know that as you put your pages together, you'll be wanting to create captions, and there are several ways to do that. And those of you who are exhibitors probably already know these. Some people write their caption on an index card and put it with the stamp. Others use a Post-it note. I'm a little bit lazy. I don't want to write out the caption and then have to type it again to put on my PowerPoint or on my album page. So what I do is number every one of my stamps and then type my captions on my computer and number the captions to go with the stamp. So then when you get ready to do your PowerPoint or your album, you just match number 12, the manatee, with number 12, the caption about the manatee. It really makes putting the whole thing together very quick and easy. Next. Organizing your stamps for whatever you're doing, whether it's a presentation or an album, becomes a challenge. I could use a list of birds in no particular order, such as the one on the left from the Sarasota Audubon Society, but that didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I decided to look at birding books and see how the birds are organized in those books. If some of you are birders, you are probably familiar with the Peterson guide shown there on the left. And that's the one that I decided to use because the categories in there seem to be simple, and I'm no expert about birds, and they made sense to me. Next. The Peterson guide organizes the birds by what it calls common usage. For example, long-legged wading birds, herons, egrets, which are in fact herons, and bitterns. Do you have herons in Pennsylvania? Anybody? Yeah, I'm saying, okay. I can obtain an ATA checklist for these birds. Here it is. Next. Very conveniently, ATA subdivides its bird checklist so I can get one for herons, egrets, and bitterns. ATA subdivides its checklist for many different categories. For example, flowers are all subdivided by the flower that it is, the same with all animals. It gets so specific that the Olympics are by the sport. The Disney stamps are by the Disney character. So we can really search for you and get very specific depending on what you're looking for. It's a good time to give a word of caution that I found out kind of the hard way as an exhibitor. You need to be sure that you take the right species of animal or plant from your checklist, purchase the right stamp for the thing that is actually found in your state. For example, in this list, I could find lots and lots of European bitterns, but I couldn't find American bitterns. Well, I can't take the easy way and put in a European bitterns because they're not found in Florida. So you're going to need to be careful and make sure that you get the right species of whatever it is that you're collecting. Next. So let's go back to the birds. When I'm doing my PowerPoint program, I'm going to make my title page with the mockingbird on it. The mockingbird is the Florida state bird, and the orange blossom is the flower. Everybody in Florida knows about mockingbirds. They're loud and obnoxious, and they're everywhere. Next. Then I'm going to start right in with those long-legged wading birds we talked about. Herons are very well-loved birds in Florida. I have a lake behind my house, and there are every kind of heron imaginable in that lake from time to time. This is my PowerPoint page, and you will see that I have brief descriptions for a quick read. Nobody wants to do a lot of reading when you're giving a presentation. And I try and come up with memorable facts, not dull facts, but memorable facts, and maybe things that people might not know. Makes it more interesting. Next. Here are some more. You can see on the stamp on the left, I've included a little bit of philatelic description. This is a stamp presentation after all, so although we're primarily interested in the images on the stamps, it is nice to include philatelic description. It doesn't need to be extensive, but it adds an element to your program. Next. More long-legged wading birds. Consider as you do your presentation, putting the name at the top close to the stamp, much as you would do in an exhibit, and the caption either to the side or below. This makes it very easy to follow along and gives you a consistent look in your presentation. Aren't these beautiful stamps? The wonderful thing about doing a collection like this is that most of the stamps that you will find, the topical stamps, are going to be newer issues, the last 20 years, say. So they're going to be inexpensive and easy to find. This really makes this a fun project that doesn't get super challenging. Next. But what to do if there's no stamp? You remember the American bittern. Well, I could find that European one, but not the American one. So I used an antique print, reasonably priced and readily available on eBay, or I buy often from a site called Period Paper. When I gave this presentation before at the virtual stamp club show, I guess it was called, I said this, and while I was finishing my presentation, I'll be darned, but a man in the audience came up with an American bittern while I was talking. So I do now have an American bittern, and I need to swap a stamp out for that. Next. I mentioned that I want to make an album in addition to a stamp show program. If you are already an exhibitor, you're familiar with this process, but I'll go through a few tips for doing a page like this. This can be, a lot of people use Microsoft Word to do this kind of a page, to do album pages, and people use Publisher. There's a broad range of programs that you can get. And ATA has a new book that I'll tell you about a little bit later that gives you all kinds of options and instructions for doing album pages. I've chosen to mat my stamps, put them on there with hinges. You could use mounts if you want to, but I have trouble with the stamp kind of shifting, and your page doesn't look so neat if the stamp isn't perfectly straight. I've used a judicious amount of colored ink. Again, you don't want a lot of color. It makes it gaudy. You want your stamps to be the thing that really shows. I've used a border, and if I was going to 3-hole punch these sheets, I would need to move that left border over, which I can easily do. In my case, I'm going to use sheet protectors and a 3-ring binder, so I didn't need to change that border. When I'm finished with the wading birds, I'll go on to other categories in that Peterson guide. Next. Not more than a couple of examples, a couple of stamps for each category. It really gets boring if you show lots and lots of one kind of bird. You really want to keep it moving, and you can see that this is going to take me a good long while to find all these birds and then go on to something else. Next. Of course, in Florida, you're going to cover sea life, and this is the beloved Florida manatee. This is the only U.S. stamp picturing a Florida manatee. Although you can find lots of manatee stamps, again, there's a word of caution. If you get a stamp from Brazil showing a manatee, it's probably an Amazonian manatee, not a Florida manatee. All these species of manatee look alike, and so you're going to have to do your homework and make sure that you get the right one. Next. Since we're doing thematic, we're going to continue the story of the manatees. The souvenir sheet on the left deals with a legend that says that Christopher Columbus, when he landed in America, saw manatees and thought they were mermaids. I don't see the resemblance, but that's the story. The stamp on the right is the very first stamp ever issued showing a manatee, not until 1966. And the reason is that before the days of underwater photography, it was darn hard to find a picture of a manatee or take a picture of a manatee. Next. Again, because I'm taking a thematic approach, I can add to the story of the manatee with a postcard showing a tourist attraction. Back in the early 20th century, if you wanted a manatee to put in your aquarium or your sideshow or your tourist attraction, all you did was go out in the Gulf of Mexico and get one. Thankfully, you can't do that anymore. The stamp on the right shows speedboats, which injure and kill more manatees than anything else. Most every manatee in Florida has scars on its back from being hit by propellers. Next. So I'm moving on with my categories, and now I'm going to do the flags of Florida. This one has an interesting twist that I thought I would tell you about. Two stamps have pictured the Florida flag, and you can see the dates there of those stamps. Next. The three stamps on, or the three flags on the left were Florida flags for which there were no stamps issued. On the right-hand side is the current Florida flag. The stamp next to it is what makes this flag today very controversial in Florida. Obviously, it appears that the Florida flag is fashioned after the Confederate flag. If you do a bit of research, you'll find that that X is actually called a saltire. It's a traditional symbol of Scotland. The reason that the Florida flag today is controversial is because that flag was adopted in the Jim Crow era, making most people think that it was designed with the Confederate flag in mind. Next. I hope I've piqued your interest in collecting your state. It's a very flexible way to collect. You can make it your collection large or small, basic or more complicated. Of course, I have many more categories to cover, and will enjoy doing the research to tell the story. Next. You can find your state bird here. Next. And your flag here. Next. And perhaps a scene from your state here. Next. Here's the title page for my album. When you do your title page, it's fun to find a special item. Isn't this a beautiful, beautiful stamp? Next. If you'd like to get a young person started with maybe a very basic collection, here's an idea. ATA sells packets for 220 different topics. Each packet contains 5 album pages, that's what you see there in the back. A package of 30 all different stamps related to whatever the topic is. A cover, usually most every packet has a cover. It has a packet of hinges and directions for how to go about hinging a stamp and making an album page. These packets are put together by an ATA volunteer who uses only stamps that have been donated to ATA. So this is really a wonderful way that we are able to use the stamps that we get that are donated. These packets are $4 each for non-members and for members, and $5 for non-members. Again, you can look on our website and you will see the long list of available topics. We have all 50 states, Washington, D.C., tourist attractions within those states, just lots and lots of choices. But this is a fun afternoon with a young person, or it's a way for you to inexpensively get started and decide if you really want to do this project or not. Next. And now if you want more help, I've got just the thing for you. This is our brand new book. It just came out less than a month ago. I'm very proud of this book. More than 50 ATA members contributed in some way to the book. It's 200 pages, lavishly illustrated in full color every page. It starts out with choosing your topic, things to consider if you want to become a topical collector, questions you should ask yourself. Oops, questions you should ask yourself, how you go about making decisions, all the things that I went through here this evening so quickly, it covers in great depth. Then it will have a section on choosing paper for your album or your exhibit, different computer programs you can use, basic steps that every person would go through in designing a page. From there, it goes on and covers the full range of philatelic items with photographs, making it really a nice reference for you as you do your projects, to just look up what a certain item, a philatelic item is. Then the book goes on into exhibiting and talks about beginning exhibiting, how to choose your topic for your exhibit, how to organize your plan, write your pages, every step of the way to do either a topical collection or a thematic collection. Both are covered in detail. And probably the best part, I think, of the book is we have many photographs of award-winning thematic and topical exhibits. They're really fun to look at, and you can learn a lot from the captions that describe why a page or an exhibit is good. Finally, at the end of the book, there are appendices that have pages and pages of lists of different philatelic items you can collect. They have foreign thematic associations and about, I think, 18-page index. So this book goes into quite a lot of detail. This book has been reviewed by leading philatelists such as John Hotchner and Cheryl Gans, who have given it rave reviews. We hope that you would like to add one of these to your library. You can order it on the ATA website. Next. That's all right if it won't advance. I just want to say that, just reiterate a couple of things. ATA is going to be having a wide range of virtual programs on Zoom for National Stamp Collecting Month in October. We will have programs every Tuesday and Thursday evening and on Saturdays. The variety that we've got is really going to make it fun. We're calling our celebration Fall into Topicals. You will be able to register on the ATA website, and you'll see a lot of publicity coming out very soon about those programs, but we would love to have you attend those. As Paul mentioned before, we do have a brand new website. It's modern, it's easy to use. Our old website, frankly, was terrible. It was 10 years too old, and we have all new website. As you may recognize, we have an all new logo. We have all new everything at ATA, and we're real happy about it. Now, I would be glad to take questions and comments, and if some of you have some ideas of things that, as you think about Pennsylvania, that you might want to include. I was thinking of things that I really like in Pennsylvania. Amish scenes, Gettysburg. What else? Lots of options for a project like this.
Well, let's thank Dawn, please. Paul, if you want to stop sharing, we could all see each other in the interim. And I think you deserve a phenomenal round of applause. This was a great presentation and overview. And Dawn's going to be kind enough to get us to a link where she's going to have this on YouTube, which we're going to make available. But let's actually open it up for questions while Paul is closing this. And I agree. Let me just give your website a shout out. I know you called us out earlier on our website, and you know, I probably spent way too much time on that, but I knew your website had changed when my website gave me an email link that your old link changed, and I had to go into our website and update it with your new link and your new website and new logo. And I'm going to refresh our site and make sure we replace your old logo with the new one. It's just a fantastic website, fantastic society. Let's open it up now that Paul stopped sharing to questions from all of our folks here that are on the line tonight. Thanks again, Dawn.
I have a question, if I may.
Please, Al, go.
Dawn, one comment I'd like to make is philately is unlimited in what you can collect. There's no end. And I think topical collecting fits that very beautifully in that there is no list that can be made of all the topics on the face of this earth that could be collected. So I think the contribution the Topical Association makes is wonderful. Now, a question. As you were speaking, I was not only focusing on what you said, but thinking about if I were to collect Florida, what would I have in my collection? And I'm curious whether you have the same thoughts in your collection. There are three people that I would put in the Florida collection: Hemingway, Truman, and Audubon, as in Key West. You have them?
Actually, I've not gotten that far with this, but you're right. You're right on there. They need to be in there.
And the other one, and you might notice I have a tie-in to Key West. Uncle Sam had me down there for 3.5 years, some years back, and I've gone back many, many times. But TWA, the airline, is fitting because that's basically where it began. And there are many TWA-related stamps out.
Very good. Thank you. I've written those ideas down.
Don't forget six-toed cats.
Yeah.
Don't forget six-toed cats. For those that didn't hear, if you go to the Hemingway house, you know what's walking around that property, right? Plenty of six-toed cats. So thank you for that. Any other questions? That was great. Thank you. Thank you, Al.
But Don,
Was that you, Jim? I don't know who went first. Jim, go ahead, and then we'll let Paul go. Go ahead, Jim.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's Jim Strikers in Southwick. Just one, I went to auctions and I tried to win it, but I couldn't get it. And it was a stamp and button crossover display. And they did it by state. And unfortunately, that went out of my price range. But they took the buttons early. Usually most of them are in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And a lot of them were brass. And they would have the state organizations, and there's a lot of stamps, especially like GAR and stuff like that, that link together. And I just wondered if you had seen that before.
I haven't, but very creative approach. I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, I would have liked to have got it too.
You're right. Thank you, Jim. Maybe it'll come around again. You never know. So keep your eyes out for it. Thank you, Jim. Paul, you had a question?
Yeah, the question I have is, I'm kind of like many of us, I guess. I'm an ephemera guy as well, postcards and maps, you know, and in the exhibiting and things. How welcome are these types of items outside of, you know, covers, souvenir sheets, stamps, Cinderella's?
That's a great question. And I only started exhibiting. I actually, Paul had my story a little bit mixed up. my husband was a lifelong stamp collector, and I would go to stamp shows with him and read books. And one day I got bored and decided to look at the exhibits. And this is only 2012. I had never collected a stamp at all before that. And I was attracted to the thematic exhibits. And so when my husband showed up to claim me, I said, you know, if I could do something like that, I would like to be an exhibitor. So that's what I did. I do what most thematic exhibitors do today, which is I do display exhibits, which can and actually even must include non-philatelic items. So for example, I have an exhibit called Backyard Chickens, which is about how to raise chickens in your backyard, which a lot of people are doing now. And I have eggshells and chicken feed and all kinds of things in that exhibit, in addition to a broad range of philatelic items. I love ephemera. I love old advertising cards, cigarette cards, tickets, all those kinds of things. So I include those in every one of my exhibits. And I think they have a place in a collection as well.
Thank you, Paul. I would agree with you,
Sorry
because
about
I know.
I think I'm mixing up a couple stories, because I did hear one where the husband caught it from the wife. So, but I'm glad you're taking that out.
She corrected you, Paul, right? Very quickly. So there you go. Well, Dawn, I would agree with you, because part of what I think we all collect, and everybody I think on this here on the Zoom, absolutely very few of us are just pure play stamps only or covers only. I mean, there's all sorts of other material that if we go down any one collecting area, that we always find some other area that supplements or complements our collection in the way that we display it. So I know I go down that pathway.
Several years ago, we, maybe 6 or 7, actually, I think it was Al's idea. After Jim Boyles died, he said, do we really need competitive exhibits? And we all looked around and realized it was a lot of money, it was a lot of work, and they were the same exhibits for years. We could name them. And we thought, why don't we just open it up to members? No charge or anything, and however many frames they want. Now we have about 24 frames, and we see a lot of this kind of material with the extra philatelic items. And the traffic around the frames is as good as or more as it was when they were competitive exhibits. You know, it's that question that I don't know if you see on exhibit ratings, but is it interesting? And that's what people are looking for, especially if you have non-collectors there looking at this material. It might get them going as well.
I would agree with you. And again, just to add again, I mean, we do have a topicals part of our website, right? And it is there. And I've put up a number of different interest links. There's collections, there's purpose. It links to the ATA. And you mentioned, Dawn, earlier about, areas in Pennsylvania that collect. Somehow we came across a tollware, Pennsylvania tollware. And I scanned a whole batch of pages. I'm looking at 20 or 30 of them now, just that topic alone. The evolution of the automobile, a whole nother set, if you want to put that in that category. If you go to our site as well, everybody on the line, you'll see some really, really neat exhibits there and pages and displays that I think really fit right into this, and you'll get some ideas of different areas. Any other questions you want to share with Dawn? Please,
Yeah.
You got a captive audience. Go ahead, Simeon. Go ahead, please.
Hi. There are two things that I would like to point out that would fit well with this. One of them is there are lots of cancels that would fit into a topical or thematic collection, right? I think that by itself, and including lots of commercial cancels, in particular in European countries, you have often a propaganda part next to a cancel, right? So those are also nice. That's one type of thing that I collect that I find is very nice. And the second thing is there are lots of errors and freaks and oddities that you can add to such a collection. Most of them are not expensive. And those always enliven an exhibit or a collection because they attract a lot the attention of whoever is viewing them. So I think errors are also interesting. If you are wondering, the thing with errors is that most of them are not very expensive. They are very affordable. So I think it's well worth your while to check them out. Go to the FOCC website, for example, you will see lots of examples of errors, most of which are really not expensive. So errors and cancels are two things I think that go greatly into a topical or thematic collection.
You're absolutely right, and I'm delighted to put a face with your wonderful writing. Seymour does columns for us in our journal Topical Time that are always enhance our understanding of this area of collecting, and I enjoy them so much.
Thank you.
I also write a column every month for American Stamp Collector and Dealer it's called Fun with Topicals. And I just finished one on pumpkins and jack-o'-lanterns, for the time of year, and included a whole range of fancy cancels of pumpkins.
Nice.
And all those things are just add so much. And I will tell you that my experience as an exhibitor is that EFOs greatly impress judges. So I always look for them.
Great, thank you.
Let me add, maybe you're aware, Dawn, and others are here around the club. I'm the president of the board of the North Museum of Nature and Science here in Lancaster County. And so obviously we have, a brick and mortar and a traditional, 400,000 object museum. We even have live animal exhibits, live beehive in the museum. They're making honey. We have dinosaurs and in flowers and other things. So a few years ago, sitting around a table with my CEO, could we not sort of introduce topicals and stamps and postal history into the museum as an activity and an educational approach to supplement? And so we started a program called Passports to Discovery. These books have been created before elsewhere, but it was something I know we had done for New York 2016 when we created a passport. And so what we did was we tied topicals and thematics, sort of into what's the month. If it was Shark Month, and many of the members here on this society and beyond have donated thousands and thousands and thousands of stamps, from around the world to the effort at the North. And we would put them out at activity stations. Everybody would get a passport. And if it was bees and butterflies and birds, they would have to go through thousands of stamps. They would identify those. They would isolate them. They would put them in their book. And that was something that they would keep, and they would come back the next month and it would be another theme. And so we've been doing this now almost 2+ years, and it's probably one of our most popular programs that we have there at the North. And it's something that we're, again, during this period of 4, 5, 6 months, we've included it in our learning packets and the packets that we've been sending out to homes and to others that need it. And what we've heard back from the younger folks and the adults and the grandparents is they're all sitting around the table and they're doing some really amazing work. They are filling them in, and we're trying to create some competitions from that, and just a myriad of different ways to approach it, Dawn. And so it's right in the sweet spot of what you've talked about.
I will tell you that on the ATA website, we have a youth section, and there are features in that youth section, over 500 pages of features called Topical Tidbits. There's a new one on there about bees. They're just a broad range of topics, and what they are album pages, downloadable activities, fun facts, lots of colored pictures, and you could use those. Those are free to anyone that wants to go on that website and download them. They're really good ideas for things for young people.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because now my CEO at the North is now getting our issue as well of your publication. So her and her education staff are now seeing it and reading it. And what you find out from some of my folks that are there on staff is they're closet collectors and they didn't even know it. And now they're not just going out and doing the real science and the investigation and the inventorying and archiving and all that good stuff with whatever area that they oversee. They're supplementing with postcards and stamps and covers and all of that. So, it's just so pervasive, and it's exciting to see it being used in this kind of way. It's just a great partnership for us.
Yeah,
So,
wonderful.
it adds right to what you're talking about, Dawn. Any
We
other
ha-
questions, please? Go ahead, Dawn. No, go ahead, please.
We have one board member who is really into promoting our hobby, Felix Perez Fulch. Went to donate blood recently, and he thought, well, stamps belong at the blood bank. So he made a poster that showed stamps relating to blood donation, and we have a picture on our website of Felix donating blood with his poster all about blood donation. He had a crowd of people around, going by that constantly. The blood bank liked it so much that they asked him, could he please come back some other days? Not necessary to donate blood, but they wanted to see his display again. He took the display of stamps he lives in Mississippi, about Mississippi. He collected his state and had a display at a rest area on the highway. So there's lots of neat things you can do with topicals.
You give me some ideas across my health system, Dawn. I've got a lot of donor centers. I just might have to fold in some stamps there. All right, that's a good idea. Any other questions, please? We've got hey, Scott, thanks for joining us, my friend. I was just thinking of you because didn't you post, somebody took stamps and filled an entire wall.
Yes.
And made a beautiful mural out of that. Talk about taking topicals, if you will, and stamps to a whole nother level by decorating an entire room in your home. Is that true? Did I see that?
That is absolutely true. We got a submission of information from a member in Australia, and it's been the hottest story on our website, or the second hottest story on our website for the last.
Oh, you cut in and out there, but I can hear you. Yeah, it's amazing. And again,
it's gotten a lot of great pickup. So it's a very creative thing to do while we're in. We're having Wi-Fi issues out here in Bellefonte, so I apologize if I cut out.
No, that's okay. You did a little bit, but we got the gist of it because you're right. It was a great story. You're right. It was in Australia. So now I recall exactly. I think that just fits with what Dawn is talking about. You can find so many ways to collect and promote and travel the planet, right? That's the other thing. I guess, Dawn, too, genealogy, I guess, is also something that we found was very interesting at the North, where we have, individuals coming in from all over the globe, and we were putting out stamps from all over the world, and individuals are asking us, could you get me a map? And I'd like to see maybe where my family is from, and then try to find in these tens of thousands of stamps where folks, where their heritage is. Mm-hmm. And so that was another thing that we found from that as well. That was really a really interesting play on a topic, right? And so just your thoughts on that. I don't know. There's no checklist per se. It's here's the country, right? And, try to find stamps from that country. But then within the country, you could also maybe, find something more personal as well and do a theme, correct?
If you were born in a city and you wanted stamps related to that, we can custom search our database by any keyword. So just because the topic you're looking for is not on our checklist, although there are 1,530.
There's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of checklists.
We can custom search, and I think there was some obscure disease that somebody wanted one time. That's the only time we've ever been stumped. We always can come up with stamps for any topic.
Excellent. Any other questions, please?
In the past, we have donated packets to both APS and ATA. We would collect them, have a packet making night, and at our December dinner, would have people drop off packets. I'm assuming that ATA is still collecting packets. Then there would be 30. Is that how you'd want them, 30 of a top?
Actually, if you are willing to sort by topic, even broad topics like animals or flowers, we would love to have them that way even.
Okay, so they can even be broader and you can fine tune them.
Yeah, the lady that does that is super efficient.
Okay.
When she started out, I think we had 24 topics, and now we've got over 200.
Wow. So birds or mammals, that'd be okay.
Yeah.
You want a little bit of pre-sorting though, Dawn. You don't want just like 6 shoe boxes of just assorted stamps from
Yeah.
around the planet.
Yes,
Yeah.
we do. A little bit of sorting is excellent.
Just so that everybody's aware, because you might get a couple of truckloads of just, here we go, off paper, on paper, all that stuff.
You cleaning out your garage again, Charlie?
No. Not clean. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
Other questions then for Dawn on the topical?